in concert. They would do magic tricks with pyramids. They would do disappearing acts. The pyramids for them they represented transcending time and space. Their spirit will will leave this world and go into the afterlife. So it's like traveling through the cosmos.
I remember the other day, okay, that should be over a year ago. I was interviewing, her name is Vanessa, is an Egyptologist. So we were talking about some of our works in Egypt. Of course, we still have a lot to do about that. I still have many experts to interview because, like I said, I am just curious. So I like to talk to people so I can learn. I believe I need to learn a lot. No? So, of course, that can be very trickish, even that argument, no? Because many experts who are Egyptologists now are non-Africans.
I knew I wanted to write something about music. I knew I wanted to write about Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I was like, well, how can I spin this? What would be my argument? My main focus. So I don't know if you are familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire, but if you grew up, anyone who grew up in their time, you saw their album covers. A lot of Kemetic symbols, ancient Egyptian symbols on the album covers. So I'm like, and Maurice White, the founder, I knew that he was interested in Egyptology. So I like, maybe some of the songs, I can have to deal with Egyptology. So as I began to study, I'll focus on the Egyptology in their visual art and in their lyrics. So Maurice White, who was also from my hometown in Memphis, Tennessee, he passed away in 2016 at the age of 74. I am Dr. Trenton Bailey, currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States of America. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, in the United States, of course. And I've been living in Atlanta since 1996 when I first came down here. I have my bachelor's degree from Morehouse College. I'm sure you know about Morehouse College. Spike Lee, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a lot of great men came from that school, greatest school on the planet. I got my master's and doctoral degrees right next door at Clark Atlanta University. It's a part of the Atlanta University Center. You have Morehouse, you have Clark Atlanta University, you have Spelman, Morris Brown, ITC, Interdenominational Theological Center, and you have the Morehouse School of Medicine. So you have 6 schools right there in the Atlanta University Center. And I currently teach at Clark Atlanta University in history and African American studies. I've also taught at Morehouse College, taught at Georgia State, taught at Morris Brown College. But I have an interest in teaching African American studies, African American history, or African history also. And for my doctoral thesis or dissertation, I wrote about the super band Earth, Wind, and Fire. I wrote about the ancient Egyptian themes and their lyrics and visual art from 1973 to 1983, because that was their classic period. That's when they were, most popular, most successful. I decided to turn my dissertation into a book, but the publisher wanted me. They said that 10 years, it's a short time frame. They wanted me to write the full history of the band. So I went back, did some more research, some more writing, and I did 50 years of Earth, Wind, and Fire, 1970 to 2020. The book is titled, Do You Remember? Celebrating 50 Years of Earth, Wind, and Fire. I wrote about them because that's my favorite group. Grew up listening to, funk music, when I was a child. That time period, 70s, 80s. And my next book will be about the Isley brothers. The Isley brothers turned 70 this year. They were formed in 1954. So this year is their 70th anniversary. So I'm working on the 70-year history of the Isley brothers. So I'm a author, historian, and professor.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, sir. It's really an honor to talk
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Because you are touching area that really is very important for us here in this podcast and in what we are doing. Because yes, we really need to go deep, and we go deep here intentionally. All right, now let's start from you. What do you remember of yourself growing up as a child? That is where we start from.
I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. You know, my mama had, some older siblings, who were a few years apart from me and my next older sibling. So the older siblings, they would listen to music all the time. So, on the stereo. So, so that's how I got my taste and love for music as a child, because my older siblings, they knew what was good, who was popular. They would play music a lot. And we would, the two youngest of us, we would listen to, dance, And my mama, she was she was in the Pentecostal church, but, she wanted us to still have fun. She didn't just force us, only to listen to, gospel music. She allowed us to listen to secular music as long as it was, good and clean. So it was fun, back then, you know, growing up. I did regular, normal stuff, go outside and play a lot from sun up to sundown, even past sundown, because back then it was a different time. We didn't have a lot of the problems that we have now, going on in the world. So back then, people played a lot. They went on social medias on their phone, video games, So it was a different time back then, and it was fun.
All right. It was fun. I love that. I love that. That makes people jealous now, the way that they were there.
Right.
So what is the most important thing about your adolescent? What do you say this is the most cherished thing that you remember of you growing up?
The most cherished thing? ah, most cherished. I, I would say that I lived on the street I grew up on. There was a lot of children. Like I said, we played a lot. I had when my cousins, came over to visit, and that's one thing that they noted. Like, wow, it's a lot of kids on here. Y'all just have so much fun. We would race from light pole to light pole. Play hide and go seek, baseball, football. I mean, we did everything. I mean, we knew how to be children. We knew how to have fun. And another cherished memory, I guess, would say excelling in school. You know, I was a good student. I knew from an early age that, you know, my career would be in academia or, something scholastic. And I won the spelling bee competition twice in elementary, fourth grade, sixth grade. I almost won in the fifth, but there was, a little slip up. So, I mean, it was, I knew that I could use my brain to take me far in life.
That is very beautiful.
Thank you.
I like this part, which is because you're a historian, you are an important personality here now, because you are telling people, you are giving people the opportunity to connect to something that happened far away before them. That is very important because that helps them to understand something far away ahead of them too, including where they are at the moment, which is the point zero. Now, did you have the chance to talk to your parents? I mean, older parents, either directly or maybe parents that might not necessarily be your parent, but older people as you are growing up, who you could sort of ask questions related to who you are, where you find yourself today in the United States. How did you get there? What has been the feeling, the experiences, and the collective, you can call it culture, or the identity of the people that you are part of? So that I'm talking of you as a young person learning through the eyes of people that are much, much older than you. Can you share anything about that?
Hmm. Well, when you're growing up, you just go through life and take it for what it is. You don't, well, for me, I didn't ask a lot of questions until I got, older, you know, as far as like who I am, I was raised by a single mother. My father wasn't there. So, I mean, we just accepted it, this is how it is. But like I said, once you get older, you want to know, what happened? Why are we living in this, dynamic? And a lot of things, I'm trying to be politically correct, uh, but I didn't understand why things were the way they were. Because I was like, why did these people make these decisions that is going to affect other people? So, but it is what it is. You can't change it. You just have to, accept some things. As far as we as a people, when I first started college, I had a professor. I took a certain class called African American Rhetoric. And that class right there, changed my trajectory. It made me want to, study about African people more, African Americans. So that's kind of how I got the desire to want to, teach African American studies and be a historian.
All right.
That's a
I'm
little bit of
interested
it.
in that class. Tell me something about that class. What actually touched you in that class?
In that class, rhetoric is using all available means to persuade someone. That's what rhetoric is. So in that class, he talked about, ancient African civilizations, mainly Kemet, or what we call Egypt. He talked about, the greatness of Black people, you know, all the things that we did outside of Egypt also, Mali, Timbuktu, Ethiopia, and we as African Americans, all the great things we've done, all the inventions we made, the music, the dance, just our culture. Everyone wants to emulate us. Our culture is America's greatest export. So, I mean, that's what, it gave me another sense of pride. So, and I feel like other people need to know this also, not just Black people, but, everyone around the world.
Thank you so much. I love that. I really love that. That is interesting. Okay, now you are a lecturer who is teaching history, African American history. Okay, now we can understand also where the passion is coming from, where the motivation is coming from. So when you want to start with somebody who is trying to understand or who have the intention of understanding African American history, where do you usually start from?
Well, it depends, like, I mean, there's one class I teach called USA, Africa, and the World. It's a world history course, but, it's intent on focusing on Africa. So in that course, we start from the beginning. Mankind started in Africa. We talk about, Kemet, I mean, Northeast Africa, Ethiopia, Nubia. So, but we basically, that's where we, started. Even in other classes, you still want to give the African background. So like, in some classes, when you talk about African American, just African American history, you have to start with West Africa, because that's where we come from. So, you just mainly, most classes, I think you would start with West Africa when you're dealing with just African American history.
All right. I'm coming to your book just now. No? We're still sort of moving around to sort of have the basis. So when you teach children about West Africa, tell me about the curiosity. What do you tell them about West Africa, and what did they tell back to you in terms of their feeling, their curiosity?
I tell them about West Africa. I let them know that, Africa was a civilized place, unlike what you've heard. people were not just walking around dancing and swinging from trees, walking around naked, just a life of leisure all the time. I let them know, there were organized societies, empires, arts, scientists, astrologers, healers, architects, those are some of the reasons why they came and got us, because they saw our, great civilizations, Benin, Ashanti, so much, rich culture in Africa. So, I have to let them know, how Africans were living, how sophisticated they were. They were not just, over there, wondering.
What did the children tell you? What did they feel? What did they? All right. Now, before you answer that question, I want to share a story with you. I live in Italy. So when I came to Italy in 2004, I was curious about Africans in Italy. And that is because I've never lived among the European before. I don't know who they are. I only heard about them reading from book or maybe see it in a movie. But have you come to Italy, see everybody, okay, most of the people are European. I naturally would be curious to understand them. But from there, my curiosity actually shift to the people like me who are living among them. What is their experience? How do you live among these people? So I was sort of asking questions, asking them to tell me what are your experiences, because I want to know. So I gather a lot of experiences from there that lead to what I'm doing today, because I am still doing the same thing. Just still talking to people, asking them questions, because I am curious. So I don't know, maybe your children, okay, I call them your children, your students listening to you, telling them something. I want to believe that they are curious because they have never been to West Africa. What are their curiosity? What did they ask you to help them clarify?
To be honest, a lot of them, they don't ask many questions because, like you said, they really don't know much about West Africa. So as I'm telling them, they are just soaking it up, and they are fascinated when they hear about, say, like the Benin walls. When they hear that, these walls were 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China, they are fascinated by the Benin bronzes. They're fascinated by Mansa Musa, who took 60,000 people across the desert, traveling to, Mecca. So they don't ask many questions. They just sit there in awe and take it in. So that's my experience as a professor.
All right. Thank you so much for that. That is important for me because we are here to learn. I am here to learn. I like to learn what the people are thinking, what they are feeling. All right. Now let's come to your book. Do you remember? That is very important. Tell me about it. What is the idea coming from? What is your interest about ancient Egypt? I think that is where we are spending most of the time today. Please go.
Ancient Egypt is the only civilization that they created a science around, Egyptology. There's no Greekology, there's no Romanology, there's no Chinaology, there's no Americanology. Ancient Egypt is such a great, civilization that it still fascinates people to this day. But the book that I wrote, when I was writing my dissertation, when I was coming up with a topic, I knew I wanted to write something about, music. I knew I wanted to write about Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I was like, well, how can I, spin this? What would be my, argument, my main, focus? So, I don't know if you are familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire, but if you grew up, anyone who grew up in their time, you saw their album covers. There are a lot of, Kemetic symbols, ancient Egyptian symbols on the album covers. So I'm like, and Maurice White, the founder, I knew that he was, interested in Egyptology. So I'm like, maybe some of the songs, I can, have to deal with Egyptology. So as I began to study, I'll focus on the Egyptology in their visual art and in their lyrics. So Maurice White, who was also from my hometown in Memphis, Tennessee, he passed away in 2016 at the age of 74. So when I found out, I was a child, I found out he was from Memphis also, I felt a connection, with him. So Egyptology, Egypt, I think we are all fascinated with Egypt in some kind of way. But my thing is, I think we as Black people need to stop putting all our focus onto Egypt. Lately, I've been doing a lot of studying on Ethiopia and its long Christian background, its long Jewish background, how their history goes back to the Old Testament, the Queen of Sheba, Queen of the South, the rock churches in Lalibela. So I've been doing a lot of, focusing on Ethiopia. That's such a great civilization also.
All right. You said before that Egypt is the only one that have logic on it, no? Egyptology. I remember the other day, okay, that should be over a year ago. I was interviewing, her name is Vanessa, is an Egyptologist. So we were talking about some of our works in Egypt. Of course, we still have a lot to do about that. I still have many experts to interview because, like I said, I am just curious. So I like to talk to people so I can learn. I believe I need to learn a lot, no? So, of course, that can be very trickish, even that argument, no? Because many experts who are Egyptologists now are non-Africans. And Egypt is in Africa, therefore an African civilization. Right. Now, we have this expert now who are teaching, presumably African, about their history. And that can be very funny as it is. So, anyway, what does it even mean, Egyptology? Maybe you could help us with that.
I think they pay so much attention to Egypt because they want to spin the narrative. They want to control, the peopling of Egypt, because I think around 330 BC, when the Macedonians or the Greeks came in, Alexander the Great came in and took over and colonized Egypt. Because, Egypt is a Greek word. The original name for that land is called Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. So when they came in, that's when they started to call it Egypt. So there's a difference between Kemet and Egypt. So, when they show movies about Cleopatra, who most likely was a white woman, Black people want Cleopatra to be Black, but most likely she was not. She was from the Ptolemy dynasty, who were Greeks who, like I said, they came in and colonized. So, Europeans like to take that, like to go from that time period on, forward and try to say that the Egyptians were white because, Cleopatra and her, her family line, they were white people. That's true. But for like 3,000 years, Kemet was a Black civilization. So I think they're so interested in Egypt because, they did so much. And it was such a great, civilization like that. They want to control the narrative and the peopling of it. Because, they have a lot of them have tried to say that the Egyptians, were white. But, from 330 BC on, a lot of them were, but you had, some Blacks who were still there and were pushed to the south, closer to what we called, Nubia. So I think that's the main reason, because they want to control the narrative, like they want to control everything. Like you said, they want to control our history to make us believe that we ain't never been nothing, we ain't nothing, we would never be anything. But we know. And let me just say this: it were the Kemites who civilized the Greeks. The Greeks went to Kemet and studied for years. All those philosophers, and then they got their knowledge from Kemet. And the same thing happened again around, let's say 711, when the Moors went into the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, and civilized them again.
Do you often bring out those arguments in your class? What do the student feel about that? Because I'm sort of imagining that there can be a kind of maybe hot debate now, because sometimes the argument is very controlled by people. They believe that they are the only one that have access to it. But now, with the advent of internet, with the advent of Google, some information, okay, I know that most information are still controlled even by Google. No, they don't just leave knowledge as a neutral information for everybody. is sort of controllable. Okay, there is more access now. Because, for example, you want to go to Vatican, Vatican have some of the most hidden secret in the world, no? Because they've been stealing from everywhere now, they keep it inside, no?
Exactly.
They don't open it for everybody. You don't just say, okay, I want to just Google, show me that thing. In fact, you are not going to have access to it. But if you are inside, you can have access to all the information that they'll be gathering. I think Google sometimes still do things like that because they just reveal everything to you. But now, at least with the one that ordinary people can have access to, it's already mind-blowing. For example, the drawing of the African map compared to how they represent Europe, and they represent the West, and they represent Africa, somebody look at it and say, but is it really, does it make sense like this? For many people, it is natural that this is the way it is, but it is not like that. It is not like that. We can put many Europe in Africa, but why did they have to make Africa this disproportionately small? Does it have any, when things like this happen, I presume that there should be argument. People should speak up. So I'm not in your class. Do they have those kind of urge to speak up and ask questions and contest and disagree? Please share with me.
Well, they don't disagree because like you were just saying, in this day and age, in the information age, I mean, even with like TikTok, there's a lot of knowledge being spread there. Like you said, they can go to YouTube, Google, and find out a lot about Black history and African history. So they don't too much, question it because they know, nowadays you can find the information because a lot of times I show short films in class and they, and that encourages them to, look at other films. So they don't ask too many questions now because, like I say, I'm sure you know that maybe it was last week when Russia opened its vaults and showed the images that they have of Jesus and the Hebrews as Black people. So, I mean, everything is coming to light now. So this generation, I think they know that, we've been, lied to for so many years. The truth is coming forth now. So, like I said, they can just research for themselves. They don't have to ask, me so many questions. They know that the truth is out there and they go find it.
That is very, okay. I'll come back to that later on. Now, let's spend some time on the book. That is important. What does that title mean? Do you remember?
Maybe you're not familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Their hit song titled September. The first line of the song is, do you remember the 21st night of September? Love was changing the minds of pretenders while chasing the clouds away. So that do you remember comes from their most famous song. That first line, do you remember? That's where that comes from. And here in America, I don't know how it is over in Europe. September is unofficially Earth, Wind, and Fire Month. And September 21st is Earth, Wind, and Fire Day. So I had to, I feel like that was the perfect title. Do you remember? Because everyone knows that line from that famous song.
All right. Thank you so much for that. That is very important. It was very important to clarify that. Now, the celebration of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Tell us more about that.
Okay, like I said, Earth, Wind, and Fire, one of the greatest bands to ever exist. Like I said, their heyday was in the 70s, early 80s. So they were worthy of a biography. Philip Bailey, the lead singer, he published a biography in 2014. Maurice White, the founder and singer, percussionist, he published his biography posthumously in 2016. But my book, I feel like, 50 years is a major milestone for any, artist. So I wanted to focus more on their art, talk about the hit songs, their stage shows, the magic tricks they use in their concerts, the album covers, the videos. So I just wanted to focus on their, art. Why is it such a great, band? Why did they have major crossover appeal? What made them stand out from their peers? So
Thank you so much for that. And because it is written now, it is history. That is very important. Now, have you had it read by people, no, and who have consumed it, and then they tell you what they feel about it? Share with me the opinion of the people who have consumed this information.
Well, the people who have read it, they love it. And they saying, well, I didn't know this about Earth, Wind, and Fire. I learned a lot. I didn't know that this song meant this, yada, 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 what the symbols mean on the album cover. So, the people who have read it, they love it. If you go to Amazon, it is available on Amazon. You read the reviews, unanimous 5-star rating. So the people love it. So anyone's listening, you can go to Amazon and read the reviews if you want. If you're wondering whether or not you should buy it, unanimous 5-star rating, and read some of those reviews, and you will see why.
All right. Okay. Now we can see that the people they enjoy it and they like what you have written. All right. Now you are the author. What is your message? What kind of message do you want to communicate to them in this book? Let's see if they get it.
Yeah, the message I just want to put out is, I love Earth, Wind, and Fire. So many other people do, and they have Maurice Weiss' message was mainly, love. He believed that music could change the world and uplift the world, uplift humanity, make the world a better place. So that's mainly the message I want to send out. Maurice, his mission, his vision for the group, his vision for the world. Music can make the world a better place. That's mainly it, and they have definitely done that. Yeah.
That is very important for us. And now tell us about you said that I think you wrote it. Okay, no, I think this is the first book that you were talking about in the beginning. You said that you have written a part of it in your dissertation. Then they told you need to add more information to that. Was it this book or it was referring to another book?
Now, my dissertation, which you have to write for your, doctoral degree, to show that you know how to do research. So, like I said, I wrote about my dissertation title is Comedic Consciousness, a study of ancient Egyptian themes in the lyrics and visual art of Earth, Wind, and Fire, 1973 to 1983. So, my focus on that. I focus on the, hit songs from that time period that had comedic themes. I focus on their album covers, with the, Egyptian symbols. I focus on the pyramids used in the concerts. And I focus on, I think, 3 of their music videos. Everybody, told me that was such a great topic, So, of course, I wanted to make my dissertation into a book. But, I wasn't thinking about, going back and doing more research. I just wanted to, here is my, subject matter, yada, yada, yada. But like I said, the publisher, they love the topic also. They was thinking that, a group like Earth, Wind, and Fire, you want to, it's best to do the full history, So to go back and do some more writing, go from the beginning of the band till 2020. So it took me about another 2 years to add that additional information on it. Now that ain't necessarily just 2 years of writing, because when you write, when you write a draft, you turn it in, they let, other people read it, your peers read it, people who are in, popular music, who study popular music, let them read it, let them give their feedback. So I have to make changes and edit, all that. So I have another 2 more years.
Now, how was the research experience for you? How was it easy for you to gather the information? What did you do in terms of the research? Who did you talk to? Tell us more about that.
Okay, research, of course, I've studied books on Egyptian symbols, Egyptian cosmology, to get a basic understanding of those, symbols that they use. Of course, I read Maurice Weiss' book. I read Philip Bailey's book. And I interviewed, I was able to interview, let's see, two of the guys who were there during the classic period, Verdine White and Ralph Johnson. Of course, like I said, Maurice White had already passed by the time I was doing the interviews. I interviewed some musicians who are in the band. Well, I interviewed, one musician who's in the band now, and a musician who came along after the classic period. I interviewed a close friend of Maurice White. He's a musician also. He did some of the songwriting for the group. And I think so those were the interviews that I did. Of course, I, use primary sources, newspaper articles, magazine articles, and, a few books. There was not much written on Earth, Wind, and Fire, by, by authors. They may have written a book on music and they have touched on Earth, Wind, and Fire. So that's why my work was so important, because I had to get this, information about Earth, Wind, and Fire out there. Of course, I listened to, their music as primary sources, the albums, I studied the album covers, I could, some of the liner notes, that's primary sources. So just watch their videos. We'll listen to some of the interviews that they would have, like on YouTube, some of the interviews they've done over the years to get a better understanding. That's a primary source.
All right. Was it easy for you to assess those information, to put them together, and of course to make your own assessment at the end of the day? How simple was it for you? How difficult was it for you?
I don't think it was difficult. It just took some time, because I love Earth, Wind, and Fire. So it was not, I don't think of it as, hard work. It just took time. So, it wasn't difficult, but, it was just a timely task, and it was well worth doing.
All right. Thank you so much for that. You were talking about Egyptian symbolism as used also by the artist. Could you maybe spend some time there explaining to us what are these symbolism and what do they mean?
Earth, Wind, and Fire was, where Maurice White started a band in 1969. It had a different name in 69. You have to read the book to find out what the name was. In 1970, he relocated to Los Angeles, and he renamed his band Earth, Wind, and Fire. In 1970, the Black Arts Movement was going on. The Black Arts Movement started around 1965 and ended around 1975. This time in America, Black artists were creating a new aesthetic for themselves, not conforming to traditional American standards. A lot of Black people were looking back to Africa. They were taking on African names. They were wearing, Afro hairstyles, dashiki, cornrows, going around saying Black is beautiful, Black power fist. So Black people were looking back to, Africa, to try to, reclaim their identity. So Maurice White, like I said, he did a lot of reading and studying. He considered himself to be a child of the universe. And he was, like I said, he was fascinated with Egyptology, the Egyptian spirituality, that civilization. And, he believed that everything started in Egypt and everything would end in Egypt. And he believed that, this, like you said, this was a Black civilization. So he believed that he can instill pride in Black people, if they know that what they've done in the past and what they can do now and in the future. So those symbols, it represents, Black pride. It represents, I don't want to, give too much away, but it represents, bits and pieces of the cosmology of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Some of their, spiritual aspects. Kemet, not Earth, Wind, and Fire, but Earth, Wind, and Fire also. But, it represents some of their, spiritual, components of Kemet. And because I go into detail about the symbols on the album covers. So you get a better understanding of what exactly Maurice White was trying to convey to his audience.
All right. So this artist, did they have any particular attachment to Egypt, like maybe going there, maybe going for maybe organizing a concert there, doing their own research, for which you also have to follow the same steps, something like that you can share with us?
Okay, I know that I think in 1979, Maurice White took all the band to Egypt, for a tour, went to go see the monuments, and all that good stuff. And, some of the band members, they were, really into it. And some of them were not, but it didn't cause a conflict, but, they understood that, this is what Earth, Wind, and Fire is about. We present you these Egyptian symbols, we in our concerts, yada, yada, yada. It was part of their mysticism. Like I said, that's another thing that helped them to stand out from other funk music bands at that time.
Now, I have another curiosity. Now, we're looking at music. Music, of course, is an element of culture. And in culture, there are the subliminal level in a culture, no? In that sometimes it is not on the surface to just get everything clear. Sometimes it is deep. So you may mention of, for example, symbolism there. Then we can also talk of spirituality. All of them are embedded in the nothing is actually separated. It is separate here. Now, I don't know if it is only Earth, Wind, and Fire that you have studied, or maybe also popular culture, music culture in America. So I want you to tell me about the use of symbolism in the message that is going to be communicated there. Because the only reason that we are using symbol is because we don't want the message to be in the open. We want the message to be available yet, but you need to decode it before you can get the message. That is what the symbol is serving there. Otherwise, I could just tell you black, but I don't want to tell you black. I put something there. It is for you to find out. That makes it even more interesting now. So tell me more about that.
As far as where Maurice White, he said he used symbols he wanted to intrigue his listeners. He wanted them to see something and think, what is this? And then go study it for themselves. In concert, they would do magic tricks with pyramids. They would do disappearing acts, the pyramid. And the pyramids, for them, they represented, transcending time and space. A lot of people, it has been believed that a lot of the pyramids in Egypt are tombs for the pharaohs, once they enter into the pyramid, their spirit will leave this world and go into the afterlife. So it's like traveling through the cosmos. So those pyramids represent transcending time and space.
But then I was also thinking about the pyramid itself, even as a symbol. So what is your take on that? If it is a symbol, then what does it represent? Because now we see pyramid even in the American dollar. We see it all across the places.
I think, now I think the pyramid itself, now in this time, when people see pyramids, it represents enlightenment. The pyramid represents enlightenment now, today. There's a pyramid on the US dollar bill. A lot of people like to throw up the pyramid, symbol with their hands. So I think now it represents enlightenment, higher level of consciousness, knowledge.
Now, for people that want to maybe get a copy of this book, where can they get a copy of it? How can they connect with you if they want to learn more?
Oh, yes, you can get this book at Amazon. You can get the paperback, the hard copy, and the ebook, the Kindle version. You can also get the audiobook on streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music. There are a lot of others. If you want to just get the audiobook, you can go to the University Press of Mississippi website, which is the publisher, and they have a list of platforms for the audiobook. That's University Press of Mississippi website.
Thank you so much for that. Now, what would be your final thought here to conclude the conversation? Of course, looking at this book that you have written, and also why not also what you are doing as an academia?
This book, this is my love. It represents a time when I was growing up listening to funk music, soul music. Like I said, the 70s, a lot of people say the 1970s had the best music. That's what some people say. So I just want to, share this with, the people of the world today who may not be too familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Because, a lot of the hip hop artists now, they sample the music from the 70s and the 80s. They sample the music from these great soul, and funk bands. So people need to know that where the good music comes from, it was from that time period.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time and also the sharing. And of course, for those who have listened to the conversation to this point, they now know what is the brain behind it and also where they can find this book. So thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.